Welcome back, everybody. My name is Jose Prado and I'm in Survival, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I had split this video in half because when I finished editing it and everything, it turned out to be an hour and 48 minutes. So this is the second part of the video that you watch. So if you have watched the previous one, this one is going to pick up exactly where it left off. If you have not seen the first video, then I encourage you to do so you can get all the information and understand exactly what I'm talking about and how the poverty around the world compares to the United States. And if you take the proper steps right now, if the United States ever experiences any type of collapse, you're going to be able to soften that collapse, and you're going to be somewhere in the middle where it's going to be better for you and your family. So watch the video, share it with your friends and family all throughout your social media, and please subscribe to the channel. That'll help us, get more people in here so they can also start getting prepared. So again, my name is Jose Prado, always ready. Here's the second part. Now let's go ahead and move to South America. And this video is gonna run a little long, and more than likely it's gonna be cut into pieces. But I really do hope that you stay all the way to the end, all right? So now let's go to South America, and we're gonna be looking at what has been happening in Venezuela, which of course is the most famous country that has been in the news for a long time, but we're gonna go over it very, very quickly. All right, so here's that video introducing Venezuela from bbcnews.com. Here it is.
In most countries, when you're out of food or cleaning products, you just go to a shop and buy the essentials. But not Venezuela. Here, getting the basics takes a lot of work and a lot of time. It's Friday in the morning, and like many Venezuelans, I'm gonna go around the city looking for products. Here I have a list, 8 essential goods. Their prices are regulated by the state, which is partly the reason why they're so scarce. First off, my local supermarket. Weird, no queue outside, but lately, Venezuelans are queuing in basements. Some say it is because the government wants to hide the queues, while others say it's because they don't want people to get sunburned. So it's 9:10 in the morning. We're queuing here to get a number so we can queue again and buy the product. We don't know what they have right now, but someone told us that they have cooking oil. Queues are, of course, the best place to hear what's the talk on the streets. So they just told us that there's no cooking oil. So basically we queued in vain. Aha! I get a text message from a friend telling me that there's corn flour in another supermarket, so let's get a motorizado. Moto taxis are the fastest way to move around Caracas. So it's 10:30 in the morning. We've been out for an hour and a half now. We haven't been able to buy anything. We got to another supermarket, we got our number. People here just told me that they've been looking for products since 5 in the morning. So I was finally able to buy something, corn flour, which is one of the most precious goods here in Venezuela. It's 12:30 in the morning, gonna keep going. Critics say the cause of shortages is price controls, which make reselling too profitable and producing, well, the worst business ever. But the government says scarcity is part of an economic war, which hides, smuggles, and hoards products to destabilize the country. To tackle this, the government is trying to control shoppers. The last measure was installing fingerprint scanners in supermarkets.
I spent the whole morning looking for products. I just bought detergent and dishwashing soap. So in total, that's only 3 products on my whole list.
Studies say that Venezuelans spend an average of 8 hours a week looking for products. Some people even take the day off to embark on the quest of finding basic goods. Others have made a job out of the hunt for goods, selling them off at a higher price. Daniel Pardo, BBC News, Caracas.
All right, so there you go, another example. And this one is more important for us because I really do think we're going to experience hyperinflation. Okay, when? I don't know, but I really do feel like we're going to, because the amount of debt that we got. Venezuela only has $160 billion in debt. And the only reason I say only is because compared to the debt that we got, which is over $32 trillion unofficially, 160 billion is nothing. All right. So let's keep that in mind while we're going through all of this. Now, one of the things that I want to point out and I want you to look at is that Venezuela has gone through hyperinflation. They've been in hyperinflation for 7-8 years, something like that. And they're not going around killing, everybody that they see on sight. Although at the beginning, again, like I said at the beginning of this video, there's the moment where crap hits the fan. And there's the moment where things start to stabilize. Anything between that, that's when you see your chaos. But it may not be something that you live for a very long time. Okay? In Venezuela, at first, people were robbing other people as they were coming out of the grocery stores because things were so scarce, right? Are they still doing that? More than likely. There's still going to be criminals and everything like that. Gangs were organizing and they were taking over, places. The government's still working, though. People in the government still getting paid. They still have a military. They're still getting help from other countries. All right, so just because there's hyperinflation doesn't mean that the government is going to fall. And that's the same thing that we could see here in the United States. And I'm very, very positive that that would happen here. That, even though we have hyperinflation, Nancy Pelosi is not going to give up her power or, anybody else, because they're going to get their money. They're going to get their trade. They're going to cut off everybody first before they stop paying themselves. So we're still going to have a government. We're still going to have a military. It may not be, we may not spend as much as we're doing right now, but the point is that there's still going to be a military. We're still going to have bombs because those aren't going anywhere. All right, we're still going to have all these other things. The only thing that we're not going to have is going to be the social safety nets to the extent that they are right now. All right, so in Venezuela, there's a population of 28.52 million people. The inflation rate right now for 2021 is 5,500%. You go into hyperinflation when it goes over 50. So they're well above that, they're beyond that. So, of course, things are very, very bad. Now, what I want to do right now is I want to show you another short video, where you're going to see how hyperinflation works when you actually have the money in your hands, okay? And again, there's still commerce. There's still, grocery stores. There's still items, but they're just scarce. And even if they're there, you may not be able to afford them, all right? So let's just watch this video real quick. Here it is.
They're queuing for something which is in short supply in Venezuela: cash. After years of hyperinflation, the local currency, the bolivar, has almost disappeared from the streets. Last month, notes worth the equivalent of only $10 million were circulating in the entire country. The US dollar has meanwhile taken over. But the greenback is not an official currency here. It's not issued by banks, and one consequence of that is there's a chronic shortage of change. Faced with this dilemma, the government has issued some new notes, the largest of which, 1 million bolivars, is worth just 50 cents. We went to this market in Caracas to see if there was any sign of the new bills a fortnight after their release. This saleswoman said she hadn't seen any. Nor had this man. There seem to be very few about, said this woman. Finally, we found one. 500,000 bolivars. That's just 25 US cents. So what is the point of issuing new notes when they're worth so little? There is one sector which urgently needs cash: public transport. Buses often don't have means for digital payment, and each ride is under $1 US. The new notes are beginning to circulate, said this bus driver. He said that was helping ease the situation. But no one is expecting this to be a long-term solution. Venezuela, in the last 13 years, has twice relaunched its currency, lopping a total of 8 zeros off previous banknotes. Some say it's inevitable that will happen again.
Today, in 2021, we need to do another monetary conversion. The government has not yet made the decision to do so, but at some stage it will, without doubt.
If he's right, this may yet be both Venezuela's biggest denomination and shortest-lived banknote. Stephen Gibbs, CGTN, Caracas.
All right, so we're going to see something like that here in the United States where we have banknotes that go beyond the $100 bill. They go to $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, whatever, because our inflation, I really do think is going to be a lot worse than theirs. You know, Venezuela at one point, they had inflation of 1 million%. I mean, you know, things have gotten a lot better right now since it's only at 5,500%. So you have to look at this type of scenarios, or not scenarios because it's reality. You have to look at reality, okay? Where if it happens in the United States, do you really think that the preps that you have at home right now are going to help you? If you cannot, you know, make your own food, if you cannot make your own shampoo or your own soap, if you can make your own toothpaste, if you can make your own clothing to some extent, all right? When you're in a hyperinflation scenario or, you know, in a hyperinflation environment, things are available. That's just very, very expensive. You know, there's Lamborghinis, but that doesn't mean that everybody's, you know, is driving one around the country. Because if it's outside your, you know, your, how much you're getting paid or, you know, what you can afford, then you're not going to get one. You're not going to have one. So you're just going to resort to the things that are, you know, to your reach. And depending on where you are in the economic ladder, you can buy you a brand new car every 5 years, you know, pay it off in time and get you a new one and then continue the cycle. Or you can be, you know, poor or, you know, be in the lower rungs of the economic ladder where when you get your income tax check, that's when you buy a car. I've done that. I know people who do that. So you have to stay within your means. But when we're looking at food, that, you know, that is one of the main things that is pretty much dominating this podcast and all the things that we're seeing around the world when we talk about poor people, you know, very poor people compared to what we are right now. Food is the main thing. So that is the reason why you have to focus on food and make sure that everything is in place. Now, if you have an alliance, there's 14 categories that you can take care of. And if everybody takes a different category, once everybody comes together, that's when you create your colony. That's when you create your community. And everybody's going to have their own expertise. And since everybody's going to be teaching everybody learns the same information. Everybody knows how to operate the same gadgets and everything else. Everybody will know how to grow a farm or how to maintain a farm, you know, stuff like that. That is going to be essential in this type of environment, which I really do believe we're going that way. All right. Venezuela has been in inflation, in hyperinflation for 4 to 5 years. All right. Hyperinflation. They were in high inflation for a while. Now, if your preps is only for 3 months, then you're going to be blown out of the water. What I tell you in this podcast is you have to have at least 2 years of store food. And then you only use this food that you have stocked up if your crops outside have failed. All right, so you want to give yourself 2 years because that's 2 year cycle, depending on where you live in the country, you know, depending on your climate, whether or not you can grow food, you know, because if you live in Florida, you can do it year round. If you live in, you know, in the north, in North Carolina, or, excuse me, North Dakota, not Carolina, North Dakota or a place like that, then you're going to be very limited. So let's just keep that in mind, and also keep in mind, you know, the droughts and shortages and everything else. All right, so the national minimum wage in Venezuela, the Venezuelan government increased the monthly minimum wage by 289%, and officials said on Saturday, moving from the equivalent of 64 US cents to about $2.40 at the exchange rate estimated by the country's central bank. All right, now that's a big jump. So that means that the economy is getting a little bit better there, but still $2.40 is nothing. All right, like I said, you know, there's some places around the world who are very poor, and there are other places who are doing a little better, but they're still very poor. All right, and this would be the case. National poverty line percentage is 64.8% of households in Venezuela live in poverty, so over half the country. National middle class wage, none. Social safety nets, food stamps given by the Venezuelan government. Price of 1 ounce of gold is 5,650,991,528. Price for 1 ounce of silver is 82,160,404.70 of their money. All right, so it's very, very important that we look at gold and silver. Are there any preppers in Venezuela? Yes, there were. All right, there's not a clear number of how many people there were preppers there, but there's several ones that have come out and they've become a little famous because, you know, the attention is on them, because prepper wants to know, what was your experience like? Is what we're doing correct? And most of the time it's no. One of the things that I've heard from people getting interviewed and, you know, listening to what they had to say is that, and I have the advantage of that because I speak Spanish, and I would bring you the interviews, but they're in Spanish. So, you know, unless you speak Spanish, let me know so I can send it to you. But if that, you know, other than that, you know, then I can't, because you won't understand it. But one of the main things that they said is that, for one, they did not have nearly enough food that they ever thought they were going to have. Two, they have no way to resupply themselves, meaning that since they're all living in the city, and that's another common denominator in all of these poverty things that we're seeing up to now, is that everybody lives in the city. There's no space around them. There's no space around them to have some type of you know, garden or farm animals or anything like that. That is the reason why you have to take steps right now. But anyways, not enough food, no way to resupply. Guns make you a target, but that's in Venezuela because, you know, technically they took them away. Here in the United States, unless they take them away, it might not be a big of issue because everybody has guns, especially if you're in the country. So it probably would not be that big of a deal. All right. The other thing was having quality tools. And by quality tools, they meant like flashlights, you know, actual tools to work outside with. Not so much all the gear that they bought. You know, some of the people said that some of the gear that they had was useless because there was no function for them, or very little compared to all the other needs that they had. All right. So that is the reason why we have to look at these things so we know exactly what we're doing. And one of the things that I've said here is that what's plaguing the prepper community is all the gear. All right. We went from looking at practical solutions to problems that we may face in the future to the best generator, the best flashlight, the best knife, the best of whatever, but it's just the one item that is probably not going to help you anyways. All right, because in Venezuela, even if they do have generators, right, for one, there's no fuel for it. And even if it's solar, you know, there might not be components to replace it, or to actually have enough batteries to run your refrigerator for a long time, or to run something else that's going to help you cook, or whatever the case may be. All right, so those are the things that we have to look at when we're looking at preparedness. The main thing that you have to do for food is how you're going to store it. And if you don't have the space to dig a root cellar, then it's not really going to do you any good. All right, so there are preppers in Venezuela, and they were not prepared enough, and they were prepared incorrectly or non-proper. Anyways, the next continent is the continent of Australia, and the country there is Kiribati. Hopefully I said that right. And it's a Caribbean country, but you know, it looks like a nice place, and I could only find one video for it. All right, so here's that video to introduce this country.
Oil trading is a retailer and wholesaler in Kiribati. It's one of the main distributors for grocery goods. For our wholesale section, we deliver up to 500 stores, local shops. Then we deliver to the Out Islands as well. We have more than 200 employees. We're a successful business here in Kiribati, but it's still very hard. Electricity is one of our main expenses monthly. Normally our freezers downstairs, the containers outside, it would use so much electricity. So we usually shut it down we disconnect it and use the generator to power it up. Most of our business is run by paper because we still do everything manually. Having things online would make things so much easier for our company because it'll save us time as well.
What's reading there?
One of the challenges that we face would be to register our company. That'll take up to 30 days. And then there's other issues as well with land, take another 30 days, and to build your shop would take probably a month. It makes it really difficult for Kiribati companies to expand to other outer islands. And if they could invest in electricity or for faster internet, it will also help us. Not only us, but our customers as well, so they can have access to online shopping and make it easier for them to buy our products. Kiribati needs more investment, like our road.
This is the Kiribati Road Rehabilitation Project, the longest and biggest in the country. And it's made up of 40 kilometers of paved road and road path.
Having this new road has been very helpful for us as well as a private company. It's saved us a lot of time as well and a lot of money. We had to repair trucks every week before the road was fixed. Delivering products could take up to 2 to 3 hours, and now with the new road we deliver within an hour, and our customers are happy as well because they don't have to catch public transport just to buy their goods. The new roads enabled us to deliver to more stores, and our customers now have opened up local shops in their villages as well.
The Kiribati Road Rehabilitation Project is one good example of strong partnership and assistance from the international and donor partners. It has been highly appreciated by the people, and it has bring a lot of benefits to social and economic activities in Kiribati. Hopefully, this is just the beginning because Kiribati needs more projects and developments like this.
All right, so I have a correction to make. I said this was a Caribbean island, but no, it's in the Pacific. It's Kiribati is an island country in the Central Pacific Ocean made up of 33 islands. So I messed up on that one, my bad, but that's the correction. But anyways, all right, so the population there is 117,606, and the inflation rate is only 1.76%. So they have no inflation at all. All right, but what they do lack is, commerce and other things, even though they do have it. But what I'm saying is that it's not a very famous island, so it's very limited the amount of money that circulates there. So even though that, inflation is almost non-existent, which is a great thing, they're still having a difficult time. The national poverty line percentage is 23% of the entire country lives in the poverty line. The minimum wage, there is no official minimum wage, but the average minimum wage is estimated by government authorities to be between $1.60 to $1.70 per hour. And of course, that really sucks, but it really makes you be grateful for the things that you have here in the United States, including the minimum wage. Although it's difficult to live in the minimum wage, with a minimum wage, but it's better off than many, many other countries all throughout the world. And if the United States was to fall, do you really think that the minimum wage would really matter? Maybe they might do something like Venezuela, raise it to 400,000, but when 400,000 Bolivar is only like 2 cents for the U.S., it doesn't really make a difference. All right, there's no middle class or no middle class wage. There's no social safety nets, which is something that impressed me. But one thing that I do want to point out is that the only reason they were able to have that road is because, they got help from the World Bank and all the other people who were helping them out. So they might start getting some type of assistance or some type of investment in the island. We don't know. But as far as food or anything like that goes, they don't get any help whatsoever. What they do, however, is that they have a system where the things that they grow is to feed their family, which is exactly what I've been talking about this entire podcast. The price for 1 ounce of gold and silver is the exact same as it is in the United States. I don't know why. Maybe because everybody in the island speaks English and it has something to do with Australia. No idea, but it's the same price. Are there any preppers there? Absolutely not. But again, the idea of preparedness can actually make people who live in poverty be a lot better off. Now, that is it with all the continents, with all 7, but really 6 because nobody lives in Antarctica. So now I want to move to America. And this is the important thing, because right now there's a lot of things that we can do in order for us to be better off. If you live in the city, don't move to the suburbs, move to the country. When you're looking for property, and 2020 and 2021 has shown that there's a lot of people with a lot of money, because when prices were going up, they were paying $400,000 over the asking price. They were paying $40,000 over the asking price. There was a house that I seen, I can't remember where, and I'm going off memory, so don't quote me on that one, but I think the house was worth like $150,000, $200,000, something like that, and it sold for $400,000 or $500,000. So there was a big chunk of money above the asking price. So there's people out there with money, and the reason that places, the houses were skyrocketing while others were going down is because, of course, those people were moving, but it was such a volume of people moving and actually being able to get another house that was more expensive shows that there's people with money in the United States. All right, more people than some believe. So that is the reason why I'm saying this. So if you're beginning to prepare, all right, if you live in the city, you have to get yourself a home in the country, not in the suburbs, because the suburbs are going to start having the same fate as the city. All right, you want to be in a place where it's secluded, very, very small amount of people, where you have surface water running through it, where you have the ability to have a well, where you have the ability to have a rain catchment system, because some places around the country is illegal. You want to have the space to be able to do a root cellar. You want to have the space to be able to have a big garden. You want to have the space to have farm animals. You want to have the space to bring in your alliance and be able to have enough space for everybody in it, and everybody working together and everything like that. You want to have a big enough space that is defensible, right? And hard to find, so people don't suddenly come up there and they start asking for stuff, which of course you should help. But there's a group of people in the prepper community who think that the best thing that they're going to do is actually go play, door to door, kicking people's door down and take their stuff. And you want to be able to have enough people, enough knowledge, enough training, not only to get rid of those people if they come into your house, but be able to defend from anybody else who thinks the same way. All right. So let's go ahead and start with America. America, of course, is not a continent, and North America is, but America is a country, and it's the superpower of the world, at least for now. And even though we have massive amounts of debt, our currency is a world reserve currency. Everybody's using it, including Venezuela, and it's taking over there and everything else. But one day we could fall, because we having political turmoil, we having society turmoil, we having food shortages, water shortages, supply chain shortages. We having all these problems. All right, what is going to be the thing that's going to trigger the collapse? I don't know, but we have to really prepare for an economic collapse, because that is going to be the one thing that's going to change the life of everyone all throughout the country. So up to this point, I've been showing you places where people are very, very poor, extremely poor, and we're about to compare those poor people to poor people in America. All right, and you can argue that there's people who have it worse. Of course, there's always somebody that has it worse than you. But what I want to show you is that when we're talking about poverty, there's levels of poverty. And if you're prepared from being the richest country in the world to be the poorest country in the world, your preparedness is going to help you cushion that fall, and you're going to fall somewhere in between, hopefully towards the richer side, so you and your family are better off. Okay, here's the first video that I want to introduce on how people in America, or how poor people in America survive. Here it is.
Around 40% of America's wealth is held by the top 1% of Americans, and only 1.6% of America's wealth is spread between the bottom 50% of Americans. This is America's wealth gap, and it's only getting bigger. But perhaps more alarming than this is that 40 million Americans are living below the poverty line. That's approximately 1 in every 8 Americans. America is known worldwide as a rich and powerful nation, which makes the American dream and striving to succeed seem like good mantras to follow. And this may be so. In America, hard work and dedication are rewarded. Anything is possible if you strive for it. On the flip side, if you're lazy and unambitious, you won't do so well. Why so many poor? Although you may think that people are poor because of a lack of ambition, this isn't always the cause. In a society with such a large wealth gap, the middle is a precarious place to be. Rising housing costs mean that more and more middle-class people rent. This is because a house is no longer a place to live anymore. It's an investment vehicle. So if you've got a decent job, you've got health insurance, and you're renting a nice place to live, all's well. But if you get ill, have an accident, or lose your job, things get complicated, and what was a spiraling slope to riches rapidly becomes a slippery slide to poverty. How do the poor survive? Food. In 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson declared war on poverty in the United States and created food stamps which are distributed to the poor. Today, more than 40 million Americans depend on them. The amount given depends upon your income and the number of children you have. An unemployed single mother with 3 children receives around $600 a month, which is not enough considering the average food budget for a family of 4 is $1,000 a month. There are, however, non-profit organizations and volunteers who visit poorer areas in food trucks offering free meals to children. Healthcare. Lack of insurance makes it virtually impossible for unemployed people to receive proper medical and dental care. Fortunately, there are non-profit organizations such as Remote Area Medical that offer pop-up clinics all over the country. These clinics appear in an area for a weekend and offer free dental care, medical consultations, and eye tests on a first-come, first-served basis. In what looks like something from a disaster movie or a refugee camp, thousands of volunteer doctors, nurses, opticians, and dentists work to provide free care to as many people as possible. Housing. With no property of their own and no possibility of renting, those lucky enough to own one live in their cars. Many cities have designated safe parking lots where people living in their cars can sleep. Some even have amenities like an outdoor kitchenette or a portaloo. Those who don't have accommodation live on the streets, under bridges, or in tents. In Los Angeles, the number of homeless people has doubled in the last few years, and tents line the streets of downtown LA. Outraged by this increase, a man called Elvis has decided to take a stand. He builds small wooden houses and gives them to the homeless. Each house is fitted with a locking door and windows, alarms and smoke detectors, and a light and socket that run off a solar panel on the roof, and is paid for by online donations. The mayor of Los Angeles has banned him from doing this, claiming that it is illegal, and if he's caught, he will be prosecuted. Rather than stop, Elvis just avoids getting caught. So even though there are many people willing to donate, help, volunteer, and fight against poverty, the problem will continue to grow until we change our society. A society that, instead of rewarding those who strive to succeed, punishes those who fail. What do you think about the poverty situation in America? Let us know in the comments.
Alright, so completely different, right? There's different levels of poverty, like I mentioned earlier. And in the United States, it's a lot better because there's a lot more organizations who can help locally. In California, that's one of the main places that everybody knows about, that there's a lot of homeless people there. There's a lot of people who do drugs, unfortunately. A lot of people who just, since things are so expensive in California, they have no other choice but to become homeless. And even if they are in those type of scenarios or, living that type of life, they can actually go to programs to get help for their drug addiction. They can go to food banks to get food, to go to a church and get a hot meal, stuff like that. They can go to shelters, the same thing in the state that I live in, Alabama. The most famous one that is in the city is Jim Hill Mission. They help the homeless, and they have a program where they help homeless people get off the streets. If they have any type of addiction, they go through through a program to get rid of the addiction, and then they try to help them with finding a job and other things. So that is wonderful, right? That is the most humane thing to do. But we can also take the steps to teach people about preparedness. So if they're doing good right now and the country suddenly collapses because of all the money printing and everything else, then everybody else is going to be in a better position. That is what I'm trying to get across here. The population of the United States is 328.2 million people. The inflation rate officially is 3.4%. Unofficially is 13%. The national poverty line, it's 33.98 million people. The national minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. The middle class for a family of three, it ranges from 40,100 to 120,400 for 2018 incomes in a recent Pew study. All right, and I want to mention something about the middle class income real quick. I mean, it depends on where you live in the country, because again, if you live in California, maybe $120,000 a year is not a lot of money, right? Because it's really expensive there. There's $1 million homes and everything like that. I guess it depends where you live in California. But for where I live in Alabama, $120,000 a year, you're making you're making the big bucks. Even if you're making $40,000 a year, or actually 50 and above, you're doing really good. It all depends on the things that you buy. You don't want to buy a super expensive house. You want to have something that is within your reach, that even if you lose your current job, that's giving you the opportunity to buy that home, whatever other job comes along can actually pay for it. You live within your means and, below your means in some instances. So, you have to make sure that you are smart about the way that you spend your money. Especially, let's say you have enough money not only to support yourself with everything, that your life is going on, and you have enough money to buy, land in the country and put a small house in it, or, mini home units or whatever the case may be. If you're able to do that, then great, because if you cannot pay for this house or whatever it is, or, natural disaster comes through, or, the economy collapses, there's a war, whatever the case may be, you can leave. Let's say you live in the city, you can leave that, or the suburbs, and you can go to the land that you own, that is yours, that nobody can take from you. That is going to be better for you. All right. So hopefully, if you're making $120,000 plus, be smart about your money. If you're making, of course, less than that, then you actually have to be very smart about your money. All right. So social safety nets. I want to really talk about this one because we have the most social safety nets that anybody else in the world, okay? And it covers a lot of things. But one day this will be cut off, because we will not be, the U.S. government will no longer be able to afford these. All right? And here's the list of the social safety nets. And I got this from this website, federalsafetynet.com/safety-net programs.html. And you can actually look at all the safety programs that the United States has. And it says, federal safety net programs in their cost in billions. The following programs target low-income individuals and families. Refundable tax credit, which of course is known as the earned tax credit, and the child tax credit, which, I talked about a minute ago about they're about to start sending some money. You better use it for your advantage. SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. Housing assistance, which, of course, is in the name. It helps with housing. SSI, Supplemental Security Income. Pell Grants, that helps people to pay for college tuitions and a bunch of other things. Temporary assistance for needy families. Cash is paid to support low-income families and move them to from welfare to work. Child nutrition, which is school lunches, breakfast and after-school food programs. Head Start, preschool programs. Job training, various programs and employment support for adults, youth, and seniors. WIC, women, infant, and children. high protein food for pregnant women and children after 5 years old, childcare and after school programs, low income home energy assistance program, which aids for heating and cooling a residential dwelling. And the last one is Lifeline, which, it's well known as the Obama phone, and it's a phone subsidy, includes cell phones. So all of this, all these programs cost the federal government $827 billion each year. And one of the things that I did not see in this list is Medicaid and Medicare. And of course, that blows this money out of proportion, which it could make it go into the trillions. So the safety nets are going to be cut off eventually because the U.S. government won't be able to pay for them, okay? And you have to take the steps right now, especially if you receive any of these programs. You have to make sure that you are preparing for the future. If you're going to have children in the future and these programs are not available, you have to think, what are you going to feed your family? What are you going to feed yourself in order for you to be able to produce milk to feed your baby? All right? You as a husband or a spouse, whatever, you got to think, well, how am I going to feed my family? You have to take the steps right now in order for you to have everything you need to make sure your family is fed. All right? I want to give you the prices of gold and silver here in the United States, the current prices, because they've been fluctuating pretty aggressively here in the past few weeks because, of the Fed and everything else. So right now, the price of 1 ounce of gold is $1,782.61. And the price of silver is $25.92. What am I thinking? All right, so that's the price of gold and silver. And are there any preppers? Now, here's the thing that really floored me when I thought about it. But then, I thought, well, it might not be too accurate. According to Google, 72% of American adults, which is about 184.6 million adults, who are preparing for the end times, a dramatic increase from only 55% of American adults at the start of 2020. All right, so the reason that they started from 2020 is because the pandemic hit. All right, so we have a big increase. Supposedly, around 184 million people are preparing for the end times. I don't believe that to be the case. I don't know, how they got the numbers. This is just my opinion. But last time I seen it, before the pandemic, it was 4 million people. Did it really increase from 4 million to 184 million? And how are these people prepping? Because if they're falling into what has been being taught in the prepper community for a very long time, then they're not preparing, properly, accurately. They're probably being gear oriented to things that they don't need. And as I showed you this entire podcast, which of course is going to be split into different parts, this podcast has what has really shown you is that poverty has different levels and there's different needs, but everything always boils down to the common denominators, which of course is the supply chain, especially the way that I teach it to you here, which is food, water, energy, and medicine. That is the 4 core things that a society needs to run. The other ones that I teach you here, those are the extras to make you have a better life, an easier life, a more productive life, a healthier life. Because, for example, for hygiene, one of the things that we see in poor countries is low hygiene. And because of that, there's diseases and everything like that where the life expectancy is very low. But if you can take care of your hygiene, on a regular basis, when you can, wash your body, brush your teeth, that's going to be better off for you in the future. So that's going to really help you have a better life after a collapse has happened. If you can make your own clothing, then, when winter comes around and, your children have holes in their pants and in their jacket and stuff like that, not only will you be able to patch it up, but you can make new clothing. Not only do you need to know how to use a gun, but you need to have enough ammo there. So if there's a firefight breaking out because, certain preppers who have the mentality that they're just going to come in and they're going to take all your stuff, then you're going to have enough bullets to be able to face them off, or at least either kill them off or run them off. So that is the reason why we have to make sure that we properly prepare, that we look at the core things and we look at the common denominator in the poor places and see where our prep is actually taking us. Because if you may have the best radio, weather radio, flashlights, what else? Knife, the chest rig, guns and everything else. But if you don't have the other things that cover you for you to live in an environment where poverty is everywhere, then all those things are not going to do you any good. All right? So that is the reason why you have to switch your thinking from what could I consume to what can I produce. And that's going to help everybody tremendously in the prepper community and citizens all throughout the world. And I really do think that if we were able to teach poor people preparedness and get the ball rolling for them, life would be a lot better. All right, so hopefully this podcast really open your eyes or made you look at the world a different way, through a different perspective. I see these videos already running for 1 hour and 48 minutes. That's before even I edit all the videos that I'm showing you and everything else. So this video will be cut in half. So there will be 2 parts to this, maybe 3, depending on how long the videos are. But anyways, my point is we have to prepare. We have to have a philosophy of preparedness where it's going to be practical, not just something that we can drum up in our imagination and think that could happen. Just we have to adjust with reality. Reality is key in preparedness, because if we just fantasize, we're never going to get anywhere. And I really need your help sharing this information with your friends and family all throughout your social media, because I really do want to create something out of this prepper community that has never been seen before. And one of the things that I've shown you is, throughout this entire podcast is one of my goals, that I really do want this to become a global community of preppers, right? The mission for Amendment Survival, one of the things that has been, evolving is that I want to restore and redefine the prepper reputation. The reason that I want to restore it is because we have been made fun of for a very long time. And now that things happen like the coronavirus and other things like that, people are starting to pay attention and they say, okay, maybe you weren't so crazy, but some of the things that you're showing and you're teaching don't make any sense. All right, that's why I want to restore and redefine the prepper reputation. But I don't want us to become a selfish community of preppers. That's what the next line is, to be well-prepared, selfless community of preppers, because not only the information that we have is for us, it should be for everybody around us, especially in the local community that you live in. Because, where I live, there's 3,000 people, which is not a lot, or at least not to me. Yes, there's people who live even more remote. But for me, this area is really good because, even though the city is an hour away, there's still other places that are close by that will still allow me to have the good things of the grid, the grocery stores and entertainment and stuff like that. So for me, this is a good area. And there's 3,000 people around me. And most of the people around me are farmers and ranchers. So if something was to happen, they already know how to do it. But, there is a certain, something that I've seen through my church is that there's still people, in trailer parks and stuff like that who don't have that type of thinking where, I want to get out of this crap and I want to make sure that my family have a better life, and I want to make sure that I can feed my own family without having to rely on the church or a food program or anything like that. Those are the places that would need help in the future from me. But as this grows and, more money comes in and I'm able to not only fund my living expenses when I don't have to go to work, where I can actually invest and make the community around me better, then that's going to be something that's going to fortify us in the future. So that's why I don't want us to be a selfish community of preppers, because with our knowledge, things can get better out there, especially in the countries that I showed you. And then the next line, is that this is not politically motivated. I can give two craps about who wins, whether Republicans or Democrats. All right, because as we have seen from the past, what do you call it, the administration and this one, is that it's all a big freaking joke. All right, the things that we were promised in the last one never happened, and the ones that we are looking for into this one are not happening. All right, so I don't want to be politically motivated. We are not politically motivated. Politics are going to be gone one day. Okay? It's not going to matter who was in the office. But all of this is concentrated and, surrounding Jesus Christ. Because if you're a Christian and you're able to help people and then give them the word of God, it's going to be a lot better to reach people. People are going to pay closer attention because, society has created brats. People who don't care about God until they really need him for whatever reason. There was a car wreck, oh God. I can pay my bills, dear God. But outside of that, if people are doing okay, they can care less. So if we find ourselves as Christians in the type of environment that I've been showing you this entire time, and we have the opportunity not only to help people with food, water, communications, safety, medical care, whatever, but also with the word of God, then we're going to create a better community. We're going to create a better people. And because I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus Christ and I want to do this, to honor Jesus, then more souls are going to be saved. I can't really talk spiritually very well, but what I'm saying is that when something bad happens, everyone is going to look for an answer. And if you're a Christian, you can provide it. Not only will you provide them with the food of the Spirit, but you will also give them food for their body. And with that, you can help people be better off. But anyways, I really do hope that this podcast helped you. I really do hope that you pay attention to the entire information, that you look at it, okay? And that you look at your preparedness. Get the survival out of it, all right? Because you're not just surviving one event. You're not just surviving one thing. You're preparing for your life to change. And if you change it right now, the transition will be a lot smoother later. But again, my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.